All right, so the new restrictions are in, and they're pretty much what I thought they would be. I did say that I didn't think they would lock down. I was right about that. And I mean, there's good news and there's bad news. I mean, depending on how you want to look at it. One thing that kind of bothers me about this whole situation is I've seen a lot of people online that I respect to varying degrees that seem to be perfectly fine with this to varying degrees. Again, which isn't the biggest gripe in the world. It's not enough for me to quit following them or anything along those lines. But the first thing to point out here is that, and like I always point out, and the fundamental reason to be against these restrictions is that as good of a reason as the mask mandates not working and the lockdowns not working are, the fundamental reason to be against these things is there is no there at no point will they admit they're wrong. It doesn't matter what happens. At no point will they admit they're wrong. I mean, you look at some of these other areas. I mean, was it New Brunswick or was it Nova Scotia? They've had one death and like less than 100 cases, I think, in some of these areas. I mean, in Nova Scotia, they mandated masks with one active case in the province. I think it's New Brunswick has had literally less than 100 cases this whole time, and they've done all these lockdown measures. Like again, this has nothing to do with public safety. And again, I don't know how many times I have to say that again. Most people watching this probably well aware of that. It has nothing to do with public safety. And again, I don't care what side of the aisle people are on. Like Doug Ford, I think, has done one of the arguably the worst job out of any of the premiers throughout this whole situation. In fact, I probably would argue he's done the worst job, to be honest. But I'm not as familiar with a lot of the eastern ones. But the restrictions aren't going to do anything. And again, I'm trying to figure out what their intentions are, and I think it's very obvious. Their intentions are um, I don't think the government wants to do a whole heck of a lot, to be fair. But on the flip side, there is that vocal minority of people that are paranoid to the nth degree. These are the end is nigh on the street corner kind of people. And again, the one thing about society that really kind of surprises me, I don't know if that's the right word or not, but whenever you talk to people that, whenever it gets to politics and this kind of stuff, they always make fun of like conspiracy theorists and then like people like to make fun of Alex Jones and people like that. But every time I hear that, I think like most of you, you people are ever like not people watching this, because if you're watching this, you're probably smart enough to question the narrative. But for the average person, they're every bit as dumb as the people they like to make fun of, if not worse, right? It's just very funny. And the one thing that I constantly hear from people is there's not a lot of people that are as outspoken as I am. But the one thing I hear from most people is that most people, they're at least skeptical of of some form of the restrictions. Like the thing I never hear from people that, oh, we should pretty much fully be reopened. We shouldn't be all paranoid about this. Like I say, I very rarely hear that, but what I do always hear is people saying that this restriction doesn't make sense or that restriction doesn't make sense. And I mean, the reason for that is because they're not designed to make sense, right? They're not designed to make sense. If they were designed to make sense, we wouldn't have restrictions on young, healthy people. We just wouldn't, right? Because they don't do anything. There's no reason for them, right? If you're under 50, the death rate is less than the flu. If you're under 50 and healthy, it's much less than the flu. I've seen numbers that show that for school age and college age kids, the death rate is 5 times less than the flu. And we had a bad flu year 2 years ago, and was anyone paranoid about that? Well, no, right? So I mean, I don't know if I mentioned the restrictions yet. The specific restrictions that they've mentioned are no quote unquote social gatherings, which again, what is the definition of a social gathering too? That's going to be another problem too. And the other big thing they did is grade 7 to 12 is online, right? So those are the two big things they did. And here's the big problem with all this kind of stuff is that do you really think that these kids aren't still going to find a way? I mean, I guess with things so virtual and online these days, they'll still find ways to talk. But I mean, do you really expect high school kids to not want to get together on the weekend? Like, again, I don't believe for a second that they're going to be able to enforce this kind of stuff, especially the whole social gathering thing. Like, how are they going to be able to enforce this? Like, how are they going to be able to enforce it? It just doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't, and that's getting back to the whole point here. It's not designed to make sense. It's not designed to make sense. It is designed to appear like they're doing something, right? This is the big comment you always hear from a lot of the idiots in the comments of like Jason Kenney and Hinshaw's Twitter, for example. It's, oh, just do something. Why aren't you guys doing something? Well, it's just these people are, it's like they're so ignorant, it's not even funny. They have done a lot, like they have done a lot. And this is the point I'm trying to get at here, is that to these people, anything less than a full-on lockdown, if you're out of your house without the government's permission, we're going to fine you to the nth degree or throw you in jail, anything less than that isn't enough for these people, right? And here's the thing, even if they did that, it wouldn't work. Even if they did that, it wouldn't work, in which case those people would just call for it over and over and over again. What the government needs to be doing right now is simply pointing out the reality, is that these lockdown measures haven't worked. Again, like, these are the same people that were telling us when we were having like 200 or 300 cases a day, oh, the hospitals are going to be overwhelmed if we don't lock down or stay locked down or keep these measures in place. Now we had 1,500 the other day. I think we had like 900 yesterday, and the hospitals still aren't even close to being overwhelmed, right? So again, they've been lying. Either they've been lying this entire time, or they're so incompetent that they have no business telling people what we should be doing. And I think it's just that they're lying, and not necessarily that they're trying to deliberately deceive for some grand conspiracy. I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm simply saying that they don't want to tell people the truth, because what would cause the most chaos in society, not just for this whole pandemic situation, but anything, it's the government telling people the truth. That is what would cause the most crap to hit the fan, is if the government simply told people the truth, right? That would be, when it comes to healthcare, right? Oh, it's, it's really nice to be able to give away healthcare, quote unquote, for free, but the reality is that we can't afford it, right? We either have to massively jack up taxes, which wouldn't work, or we have to massively increase spending, which is usually the way they go. Either one of those is unsustainable. So again, like, but imagine if the government told people that, they would go insane. Right? They would go insane. We can't have mass immigration because we can't pay for it, right? Oh, you're racist. You're the World War II Germans, right? Like, again, it's just the people that are hated the most these days are the people that are willing to tell the truth the most, right? The mainstream media gets up there and lies endlessly. So obviously it's not even funny, but yet are they still doing fine? Well, yeah, of course they're still doing fine, right? So in a nutshell, out of 10, let's put this on a 1 to 10 scale, the new restrictions. 1 being keeping things the same, or 10 being, lockdowns. If you're caught out of your house without the government's permission, you're going to get fined or thrown in jail. I would say it's about a 6. I would say it's about a 6, because, and here's the, maybe even a 7, to be honest, because honestly, we're at the point to where if they were to go any further, it would be lockdown. Like, they're already banning indoor social gatherings. They already have heavy restrictions on businesses. I mean, that is the only good piece of news. Literally, the only good piece of news coming out of this is, which is a good piece of news, to be fair, is they seem like they've, and again, I'm not going to believe a word they say because they've been misleading us this entire time, but it seems like they're not going to shut down businesses. That is the one good piece of news. The problem being is that people's livelihoods and people's incomes are still indirectly being hit, and then the economy is still going to struggle massively because of all the other regulations. Like, this is the one thing that they say, oh, we got to keep businesses open because we don't want to destroy the economy, but yet the amount of restrictions you have on businesses are still going to destroy the economy if we keep going like this, right? Like, and here's the thing, like, if the policies that they have in place aren't going to destroy businesses, the unemployment rate should be lower, and it should go down. Like, the unemployment rate should be, I mean, what was Alberta's unemployment rate before this whole situation? Like 7%, where I think we're in the double digits now. Like, we should get back to that range, but we're not going to, because the economy is still doing terrible. Most people still have no idea just how bad things are. Like, we're going to recover out of this whole situation into a recession, right? That is how bad things are. We are going to recover into a recession. So again, that's the first thing. The other big thing that was going on yesterday is this situation. I forget what this guy's name was, but he has the barbecue restaurant in Ontario. I don't remember exactly where it was, but he opened defying the government's edicts, and they shut it down, and now today they have cops showing up. I don't know if they shut it down again. I don't know what the whole story is here. I haven't looked too close into it. But the one thing that I wanted to bring up here is that more people should be doing this, right? Because the more people that do this, the less ability the government's going to have to shut this stuff down. Like, let's just say it's never going to happen, but let's just say the government locks down and literally everybody tells them F off, we're opening our businesses, we're going to go about our daily lives. The government wouldn't do anything. They would do nothing. They would just say, yeah, yeah, we're going to take the loss on this one. The only way that they can get away with this stuff is the fact that the vast majority of people go along with it. Even if 10% of people, I'd say maybe 20 for sure, but even 10, if 10% of people and 10% of businesses said, F you, we're going to keep going, I don't think that they would be able to do anything. And if they did, they would literally have to work 24/7 to control businesses. Like this is the thing that makes no sense, is that we have all these issues in society right now, and we're worried about this stuff. Like we're worried about, and again, Ezra Levant points out here, great news, guys. Toronto's gun problem and gang problem are solved, so police are taken off the beat and being put on the shutdown a restaurant beat. Needless to say, the media party is on the side of the police state. Now, again, like, why aren't more people up in arms about this kind of stuff? Again, you have all these idiotic leftists. Again, you read through Reddit or, basically any leftist page on Twitter. I don't have Facebook, but I imagine it's pretty bad. Reddit's pretty bad. They constantly complain about Jason Kenney and how he's such a fascist, right? And Donald Trump, he's such a fascist, right? But yet you have literal, fascism going on here. The government telling people what they can do with no justification behind it whatsoever, and they're silent, right? They're silent, right? And again, I could have told anyone going into this situation that they would be silent about it. The only quote unquote fascism they're against is any form of political anything that goes against their political worldview, right? Like anything less than socialism is fascism to these people, right? And again, if you have a police state, but you have a socialist government, they could care less. That's not authoritarianism whatsoever, right? So good on this guy for keeping his restaurant open. I hope that the government f's off, but they probably won't. So that's going to be unfortunate. But again, another thing too is hopefully people can get some of this stuff challenged in court. The problem is that I think that the system is so broken that I don't think that the courts would side with the people, even though it's, I think, rather clear they should be. But again, the system is so broken these days, I don't think it would happen. This is from Sheila Gunn Reid, and again, Brian Pallister, arguably the next worst premier in Canada right now. In fact, he probably is. Next to Doug Ford. So Manitoba introduces a snitch line, basically. And again, like Sheila Gunn Reid points out here, nothing says we're all part of the team like snitching on your neighbors. And again, it's a good point in that the good news is that at least as of right now, Alberta hasn't introduced one of these things. So that is one of the other pieces of good news as far as our restrictions go. So any of the Karens out there are actually going to have to get off their butt and file a complaint the old-fashioned way. So that is good news rather than simply being able to call someone. So again, that is good news. But again, this is literal stuff out of World War II Germany or a communist country. Like this is textbook communist or World War II German stuff, right? But again, are any of the quote unquote anti-fascists or any of the people that are all worried about fascism, are they up in arms about this? No, they could care less, right? Because when it benefits, when any form of authoritarianism can make the government bigger or get them the ability to grow more power, they're all for it, right? They're going to be all for it. So again, this is a pretty scary piece of, and again, people see this kind of stuff when they just scoff at it. But again, like, what is it next? Like, what's going to be next? Because the slippery slope, again, people scoff at the slippery slope argument, but the slippery slope argument has been proven true almost at every point along the line during this whole situation, right? So, and the last thing I wanted to bring up, speaking of craziness, is Pennsylvania mandating people wear masks inside their homes. And again, like this is this is exactly what I've been saying all along, is that these people aren't going to stop. Again, I hear it all the time. Oh, it's just temporary, just wear a mask. It's just temporary, let's just lock down. It's just temporary, right? Well, no, it isn't. Like I said, the zealots and the complete insane people, their solution to anything along this line is always just to double down. It's never, oh, yeah, and here's the thing, like, if, I understand I'm not going to agree with these people. Again, people like to point that out. I mean, at least people that are on the more zealot side that see this. And the one thing I always point out is that, yeah, I understand that. But if we want to be able to have a cordial, honest conversation, you guys got to stop moving the goalposts so much, right? Like they've moved the goalposts from 2 weeks to almost a year, temporary mask mandates to mask mandates for over a year, right? Oh, you just got to wear them in public spaces, just inside, just in public spaces. Now it's in your own home. Now again, the insanity never ends with these people. And here's the other thing too, like another important point is that there's no way of enforcing this. Like, why is the government on the taxpayer dime spending time on this kind of stuff when they could be spending time on doing stuff that's actually going to make a difference? Right? Like, at least talk about lockdowns or some other BS. Like, again, you're never going to be able to enforce this, and who in the world is going to listen to it? Like, how stupid you have to be to wear a mask inside your house, even if the government says you have to, right? Like again, it's just absolute insanity. And the fact that many people actually probably will do this just goes to show just how insane the average person is. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. You can donate if you'd like to do that as well. But at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more.